we need and want people to be watching what we do as we do it. Football teams would prefer to have people in the stands watching what they do as those teams do it. The reality of the pandemic is the NFL is going to have some inconsistent approaches to fans who are allowed to be there and who are not. The NFL isn't going to say, hey, if one team can't have fans, no team can have fans. And a couple of coaches are not happy about it. Here are Sean McDermott of the Bills and Mike Zimmer of the Vikings making their displeasure known.
Yeah, look, it is what it is. We control what we can control. I think it's honestly ridiculous that there will be on the surface what appears to be a playing field that's like that inconsistently across the league, with the different away stadiums. But it is what it is. We control. We can control. That's got to be our mindset, and that's how we attack.
I think there's some fair things going on around it as far as, some teams can have fans and some teams can't. I think there's a competitive disadvantage in some of those areas.
Here's the reality. These guys are being asked questions by media during these video conferences, and this is an obvious topic to ask them about. It's not like they're showing up with an agenda and saying, I'd like to make a statement.
Right.
I think we're going to be screwed by this attendance policy. But still, they are laying bare how they feel about it. And, Chris, I've seen no one credibly push back on the threshold point that it is unfair, that it is a competitive disadvantage. If one team has no fans, if another team in their division has 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever percent, any percent is more than zero. I remember that from math. And yes, it's inconsistent and thus unfair because it creates a disadvantage for the team that can't have fans when it has to go on the road and play in a stadium that has fans.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There is going to be somewhat of a competitive disadvantage. Yes. You'd like to maybe think the NFL would think of, league uniformity as far as like what they should do with this issue. No fans because, most of the teams can't. So, hey, all teams shouldn't be able to. But that's just not the reality of the situation. The first thing I would say, and something you've said over and over, Mike, you said it a little yesterday. I mean, yeah, the NFL is not going to make the money it's made the past, 20, 30, 40 years. It's a pandemic. So they need to get as much money as they possibly can in any which avenue and whatever they can. And we know that gets spread, whether that's the 20,000, 5,000, 20,000. Hey, that'll add up after 17 weeks of a regular season football season and pay a lot of bills. So I get that. And a year in a pandemic, we just got to be flexible that way. And then the other thing I'll just say to this, Mike, I mean, really, do you think 20,000 fans is really going to set a competitive advantage for a team in a way where you're going to feel uncomfortable about it, right? Like, I don't know if it makes me that angered. Hey, I want to see everything equal, but let's just say your Minnesota Vikings, yeah, they're hosting no fans.
Will you stop?
I'm not going to stop.
Why?
Because I'm not.
Go ahead.
Okay, so don't get mad. All right? So let's say they got to go on the road and, play a team that's got 5, 10,000, maybe 20,000. Are you going to be angered? I don't know. Do you really think that 20,000 will be able to make enough noise to really disrupt your team and professionals and everything like that? I don't.
I don't care. I don't care about it one way or the other because I understand what they're doing. I understand why they're doing it. One of the first things my mom ever taught me was the Ben Franklin quote, "A penny saved is a penny earned." Well, in this case, a dollar earned is a dollar saved. They're looking at $7 billion by some estimates that I've seen published in losses if no fans are present for any games this year. $7 billion between ticket sales, parking, concessions, all the stuff that they try to get you to buy when you show up at the stadium. That all goes away if no one goes to the games. So the mindset is anyone we can let come through the door and pay us to be at the game and pay for food and pay for beer and pay for a program if they still have programs and pay for this and pay for that, that helps rebuild this disaster of a season, at least financially, for the NFL. So I understand why they're doing it. And I wish they would just say that's why they're doing it because I think people can accept it and people can move on. Now, will 20% capacity make a difference? I don't know, because we've never seen it before. That's the key, Chris. We don't know how much noise they're going to generate in a Seattle stadium with only 20% there. But I'll tell you this, the way they've designed that damn thing, it doesn't take much noise to get it focused right down on the field and right down on the opposing team's bench. So maybe they can do with 20,000 what they could do with 60,000. So here's what the NFL's official position is. Jeff Miller, the new head of PR, says that decisions are made first by state and local health authorities, who make the determination as to whether or not it's permissible for any number of fans or none to congregate at the site. Yes, of course. That's how it works, and that's what they are deferring to. Dr. Alan Sills, Chief Medical Officer. Obviously, there are differences in the state of the pandemic and state of the infection as you move across the country. So the fact that there's not one-size-fits-all approach shouldn't be surprising given the medical situations across the league. Okay, but here's the thing, Dr. Sills. They did use one-size-fits-all for the offseason program. So that's where the logic is falling apart. From March until July, there was an obsession with making sure that the rules that apply to one team apply to all teams. So if California can't have any coaches in the building, no one can have any coaches in the building. If one state says no one's allowed to show up for work, then no one's allowed to show up for work anywhere. And they eventually relaxed it a little bit, but at the end of the day, they took great pains to ensure competitive balance as it related to the rules of the offseason. Now, that all goes out the window when it comes to saving as much money as you can. And I wish they would just come out and say it. It's okay. It's okay to say, look, we are looking at staggering losses this year. We're going to cram every ass into every seat that we possibly can.
Yeah.
Just say that, because that's what they're doing.
Well, you're right. That's what they need to say. I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, man, the NFL, you guys are ridiculous. How inconsiderate are you? You guys want more money in a year you're going to lose money? I mean, yeah. I mean, you're right. No one's going to get mad at that, aspect in this day and age and the reality we're stuck in right now. So I'm with you. The NFL, they should just come out and say that. I guess the big thing is, and again, I know you brought up like, hey, everything was equal in the offseason and all that. Well, I think that's a little bit different, just to say that out there, because, it wouldn't be fair if one coaching staff could work work on game plans and do that, and another coaching staff couldn't. Now, this still affects the competitive advantage. I'm not trying to say it doesn't, but I don't think it sways it into an effect to where I'm angered by it as a fan. And I don't think it'll sway it enough to where if you're a head coach or you're a player, you're going to be angered by it. I don't think if you're playing for the New York Football Giants and you got no fans, and then if you got to go down to play Dallas, first off, you're just happy you're playing football, most football players. And if you have to go down there and play the Cowboys, who do have 20,000, you go, that stinks. But it's not going to be like, man, I don't think guys in the locker room are going to be like, that's some BS. We need to talk to our player reps and get something done here. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Now, I don't know. If it goes to I will say this, if it goes into the above 50% capacity, and then you have teams that have 0% capacity still because of their state rules, then I do start to look at it and go, whoa, that could be a big number of, a lot of people in a stadium. 50% capacity in the Cowboy Stadium, that could be a little loud, certainly. But again, I just think we're in a time where no one's going to want to hear it. Nobody cares right now. And the players are just going to have to deal with it because this is the way the rules and our country is set up right now with the state-by-state legislation.
I think that's the threshold reaction most people are going to have. We got bigger issues now to deal with than worrying about whether or not a team that goes on the road is playing in front of 0 fans, 10,000 fans, or 60,000 fans. Big deal. Just be glad that they found a way to play the damn game. It doesn't matter who's there. That's my threshold position. And then I fall back to the reality that this is a business. I know. See, this is why. Let me choose my words carefully here. This is why they say football is family, not football is business. And this is why they're not going to come out and say, hey, folks, look, it's a pretty simple analysis here. We're trying to make money. We're not doing this for the greater good. We're not doing this as some sort of civic enterprise. We're doing this to make every last dollar that we possibly can. So in that spirit of American capitalism, sorry, Vikings, if you can't have any fans and you have to go play in a stadium where there's 50% capacity, sucks for you, but not for us, because we're trying to make money and we're trying to do what we can to avoid the losses from the pandemic. It's so obvious. That's why it doesn't bother me. It's so obvious.
Yeah, right.
Because I understand it's a business. But see, now I've answered my own question as to why they just won't come out and say it. Because football is family. Football isn't business, but football is business, and it's good for business to say football is family.
Well, I mean, yes.
I think that makes sense.
You get, and I know you love that, football is family phrase. That's one of your favorites out there.
It's a marketing slogan aimed at enhancing a business. Come on, people. We can still enjoy football and understand that at the core it's a business.
No, I mean, we know. It's very much a business. It's a very real business, and anybody that's been involved in it or around it close enough, you'll realize that in a hurry. But I can't disagree with you there. I don't know why the NFL doesn't just come out and say that, just to kind of like settle the media, the coaches, everybody down, just to be like, hey, this is the way it is this year. We're trying to scrounge together every last dollar we can get, because we are a family and we want to make sure the family gets fed. Right? I mean, that's I know, I just had to have fun with that. But I'm with you there. And I don't have a big issue with it. And especially as a fan, and especially right now, I'm just happy there's football. And I just don't give a damn right now that, some teams will have fans and others won't. Honestly, it adds to another interesting kind of psychological dynamic to this season, in which I'm excited about this year to see how this unfolds and how teams handle it all.
And let me just say, a far greater concern for every coach in the NFL than whether or not his home games won't have fans and his road games may have fans rooting against him is the reality that whatever the hell happened over the weekend at the Bioreference Laboratory in New Jersey could happen again. We talked about this yesterday on PFTOT when the statement came out explaining what happened. And when you look carefully at the 93 words that were issued by Bioreference Laboratories, they don't know what happened, or at least that's their official position. So the coaches and the GMs and the players and everybody's going to be walking around wondering, when's that going to happen again, since they don't know what it was? If they don't know what it was, they don't know how to stop it. That's a far greater concern from my standpoint if I'm an NFL head coach than whether or not fans are going to be there. I mean, for some of the teams that travel well, maybe they should be happy that fans are going to be there when they go on the road. Maybe it's going to be their fans.
Well, it could be.
Who are more likely to show up than the home fans.
Well, yeah, you're right. Maybe they'll just be hungry for some sort of, viewing pleasure to be able to see their team in person. And, they travel down to a place like, I was just looking at the Minnesota Vikings schedule just to look at it there. Yeah, they got a trip to go to the Houston Texans. Maybe, that's what he's looking at. States like that, Houston. Maybe Tennessee, maybe Mike Zimmer's looking at the early part of the schedule going, damn, we got to go and play some teams that, are in some states where I think they're going to have crowds, and we're not going to have that. Maybe he just doesn't like that, and just, of course, it's brought to his attention. But I got no issue with it. I'm not concerned with it with the slightest. You're right. I'm more worried about guys staying COVID-free, the testing staying, strong, like you just talked about, and we'll see where all this leads. I don't expect the NFL to make anything happen.
They're not going to change it,
right? No,
they're not going to change it. No, they're not going to change it. Look, it's worth us talking about it so people understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're not going to change this. Chris, the one development that I would expect, and maybe we'll know about it, maybe we won't, will be a memo, could be a memo, should be a memo, if the league wants guys like Mike Zimmer and Sean McDermott to stop talking about this, telling all the coaches and GMs and owners and everyone else, don't talk about it, because they did that prior to the draft.
Right.
They sent out the memo saying there will be discipline.
Right.
If you talk publicly about our arrangements for the draft or express concerns about going forward.
Be optimistic. They kept saying to the teams and the coaches before this all went down in training camp and all that. So you're right. Send out another league memo. Get everybody on the same page. So people don't get disgruntled and it gets lost in translation through the media and everything like that.
I posted something this morning before the show. Vic Fangio, the Broncos coach, has the right attitude. He says, I don't give a damn about that. But you can't control it, right?
No.
That's the thing. You're not going to change it. They're going to go forward unless the coaches are looking, and it's way too early to be building excuses for a failed season into your talking points. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's never too early to set yourself up to say, well, this is why we stunk this year. But Mike Zimmer just got a new contract. Sean McDermott just got a new contract. That's the last thing they should be thinking about, is setting up excuses in advance if they fail this year. If they were on the hot seat, it'd be different. Those are the coaches that I would expect, Chris, to be making these complaints, because they're trying to line up everything they can point to when it's time to go to the owner's office after you go 6-10 and the owner says, why shouldn't I fire you?
Well,
item number one, we got screwed this year competitively because we weren't allowed to have fans and everybody else was.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, to echo something you said early on, again, these were questions they were asked too. It wasn't like, I don't think they're looking to make excuses or anything like that. I do think as competitors, they're probably a little bit just like, man, that's messed up. I mean, we're going to have to go there and, maybe have some silent calls at the line of scrimmage and do that, and then they're going to come to us and it's just going to be free reign. I understand them having that thought, but I just don't think it holds any water per se in a year like this right now.
Let me go extra next level cynicism.
Uh-oh, here we go.
You ready? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
And I haven't thought about this in advance.
Yes.
This just came to me. This just came to me. So I can make no representation as to whether or not this is going to be worth anything. Having said that, what if the league isn't troubled by guys like Zimmer and McDermott complaining about the potential competitive imbalance, because that creates a nice little buffer between what they're saying and the reality is it's a business and we're just trying to chase dollars here. And if they never, because that's what they could say. That's what Zimmer and McDermott could have said instead of, we think it's unfair, we think it's ridiculous to have these different standards. They could say what we're saying. Well, hey, it's a business, folks. If you haven't been paying attention, football is family. No, it's a business, and this is about making as much money as possible or saving as much money as possible. Maybe the league at large prefers that the coaches complain about potential competitive imbalance instead of pulling back the curtain and saying, look, folks, we're trying to
maybe, Mike,
minimize the $7 billion that we otherwise would lose if no fans are present. And I still don't know why they have any reticence to let people understand that that's the way it is, because we all know, just like with college football, we all know what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep the money machine going, even if they don't have classes in person. They want football in person. If there was a way they could make that money by not having football in person, I guarantee you they would do it. Let's take a look at the teams that may be helped and the teams that may be hurt by this approach. But again, we don't know and won't know what it means to have partial capacity to a home field advantage until it happens. But the 5 best and 5 worst home records since 2017. Here's the graphic. The Patriots are the best. Now, look, I don't know if that has anything to do with having fans present. And the Browns are the worst. And I don't think that has anything to do with having fans present. So I don't know how much the home field advantage comes into play. I think it does for the Saints, for the Chiefs, for the Vikings. And look, I was at the Vikings stadium before they opened it. They have engineered that stadium to send the sound right to the opposing sideline. The way that roof is slanted, right? That wasn't accidental. The sound goes straight down to the opposing sideline. So I don't know if it'll work with 10,000 or 20,000. It definitely won't work with none. But, I don't know how much having the crowd present really helps anyone, especially if it would be a partial crowd. Chris.
Well, yeah, you're right. I don't know either. Now, those teams that we just showed there, the top teams, with the best home records and all that it is real. I mean, it is. All 5 of them. Baltimore, I think, is one of the loudest stadiums in football. Now, you're right, Mike.
New England isn't. In the regular season game, like you said, it's the preseason. They don't care. They're not engaged until the postseason.
It is not, but there is, but you're right. There's a mystique in there, and those fans let you know it, and they do have a great way of, I don't know, talking trash, getting underneath the other team's skin. I mean, they're a bunch of Boston guys. They know how to get, underneath your skin in a hurry. They do. So there is something to that there. But you're right. I'm not like, oh, my gosh, the crowd is so loud in there in New England, you can't hear yourself think like maybe Kansas City or, Minnesota or New Orleans where you really can't hear yourself. That to me will be something to watch out for, though, is the dome teams. And how much capacity will they allow? Like, where will New Orleans be? Because New Orleans at 20% capacity is going to be louder than almost all outdoor stadiums at 20% capacity. I mean, those indoor stadiums, it echoes, it traps that noise in there, and there is a difference there. But we'll see where it goes. But yeah, some teams are certainly going to be affected by not having their advantage at home field like they do in years past.
And then there's that lingering question of this possibility of the NFL using ambient noise, fake noise. I don't know if they're trying to create a baseline. I'm very concerned about the possibility for shenanigans if anyone from the home team has control of the knobs. But I can understand why they would want to do it. There was an item last week in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Chris, of how the Falcons are preparing, varying their snap counts, using hand signals, using silent counts for when everything can be heard crystal clear. We talked about that last week. The more easy it is for the offense to hear, the more easy it is for the defense to hear, and they're going to pick up the rhythm. They're going to pick up the cadence, and you better change it up. And the Falcons are talking about changing their snap count, changing their cadence, going to hand signals, going to silent count, just to keep the defense guessing and preserve that split-second edge. And, folks, that's where the noise becomes the biggest factor. The home team's defense benefits from the fact that the visiting team's offense potentially loses that split second that lets them begin to execute the play before the defense is on them. And that's the very real impact of having a loud stadium for the home team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it does. It affects communication. The other thing, yes, with these snap counts too, I don't know. You weigh this out, Mike. You tell me. Von Miller in a really loud stadium, the offensive tackle, the offensive lineman, they're looking back at the quarterback. They're looking at the ball. Wait, is it being snapped? There's Von Miller. Okay, there's that disadvantage, right? But Von Miller can't hear anything either, so he's going on movement as well. I don't know. Does he have more of an advantage in that environment, Mike?
Yes, I think so. I think when it's loud.
Okay.
I think when it's loud for the offense.
Yeah.
When it's loud for the offense, it's more likely to take away that advantage of knowing, the rhythm, the cadence,
definitely.
and when the play is going to start. Because whether it's on 1 or on 2 or on 3, and you can hear it all. So you can anticipate it. So the way the quarterback talks. You know what the rhythm is. You know when 2 is coming,
right,
and that's when you fire off. If you're Von Miller in that environment and it's loud, and the left tackle that Von Miller's trying to beat is waiting for movement, and Von Miller's waiting for movement, it's a tie, it's even. And it comes down to that boom, just there, just that much of a difference between a left tackle having a chance to redirect Von Miller and keep him from getting around the left tackle, and Von Miller running right by him.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because I also go, okay, quiet stadium, Von Miller, being able to hear the voice inflections and things like that, he's going to start to get a really good feel for the rhythm and tone of these quarterbacks too, to your point of why the Atlanta Falcons are doing this, because they're probably realizing, man, Dante Fowler, Grady Jarrett, if they can hear the snap count all the time, holy cow. They have a good feel and rhythm for what on 1 is all the time and what on 2 is all the time. Yeah, they're going to be hard to stop. So it is another interesting dynamic to think about. And even on top of that, I think the other thing that's going to really have to go down, just while we're on this communication thing, is if you're an NFL quarterback this year, you got to go into games, I think, with a number of signals for that one signal, right? Where you might have been able to get away with, you might just be able to yell the word, okay, hey, this, whatever, Lexus, okay. Now everybody hears Lexus. The defense knows what Lexus is. You better have another way to say that audible later or have another signal in the bag, because if you go to it too many times, I do think it's the type of year where teams are going to start piecing that together. Ooh, I heard this on the TV copy. He said this, that meant that. You're going to have to be very aware of what's said during a game, changing it up on a week-to-week, game-to-game basis so you don't have signs and signals stolen by the defense.
And I think that's the human reality of it. You are out there in that crucible when everyone's there, 60,000 people, and they're making all that noise. It's harder to process everything that's happening. That noise becomes a distraction. It becomes an irritant. At some point you get used to it, but it still limits what you can hear.
Yeah.
You take everyone out of there, and it's a different vibe altogether. And this is what teams need to plan for. And I think part of the problem is they're not going to know until they do it once. They're not going to know what it sounds like with only 15,000 fans present. They're not going to know what the issues are. They're not going to know how clearly the defense. They're going to have to be ready for every possible thing. They're going to have to change on the fly, along with all the other crap they have to worry about during a football game, being flexible and adjust on the fly. This is another thing that they're going to have to be ready to factor in and make adjustments for. And the more planning that's done in advance, the better off you're going to be, which means the Patriots will find a way to figure it out before everybody else, and everybody else will copy them. Let's take a look at the teams that currently have allowed fans, because we know of places where there won't be fans all year.
Right.
There are specific places where we know going in that there will be fans at the home opener. Chiefs 16,000, Colts 16,800, Dolphins 13,000, Jaguars 16,800. And how about the Rams? I thought California would never allow anybody. I was shocked, given what's going on in LA. And here's the other side of it too. Just because that's the capacity doesn't mean that's the actual attendance. Remember, the Packers decided to go with no fans their first 2 home games because more than 80% of their season ticket holders opted out of their season tickets for this year. So just because you say, as the Dolphins, hey, we got 13,000 seats to sell, it doesn't mean 13,000 seats are going to be purchased.
That'd be interesting too, just to see that psychosis of how hungry are fans really to get into that environment and really want to do that. I'm interested to see that as well, because of course we haven't had that yet. Now, in NFL Stadium, of course.
Would you go? Would you go?
You know what, Mike? I feel like I think I would. I probably wouldn't want to go week 1, Mike. I probably wouldn't want to go week 1. I'd want to see how it is. But if I felt like, okay, I've watched a week on TV and there's 2-3 seats in between each individual and people are wearing masks, honestly, Mike, I think I am one of those people that would go. Call me crazy or stupid or whatever. But I would try to be very careful, of course, and take the right precautions and all that. But, yeah, I think I'm getting at a point in my life where I probably would go.
And see, ordinarily I would say I don't want to go because I prefer to stay home and watch all the games on TV, and I just don't want to go anyway because I just don't want to deal with the crowds and this and the other. Now, after being home for 5 months, I'll go anywhere.
I hear you.
I'll go anywhere. I was talking over the weekend about getting a new car, and my wife said, what, so you can drive to the bank once a week, so you can go to the grocery store once a week, so you can go to the pharmacy once a month? It's like, you're right. We really aren't doing all that much right now, so I may be very inclined to hop on.
You probably don't have a big enough garage anyways, Rob. It's probably a really small garage, and you can't get another car in there. I'm sure it's really tight fit there in Chateau de Florio.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.